What the city is talking about.
The news that impacts you.
Welcome to the Montreal Now podcast
with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Welcome to the week that was here on the iHeartRadio network. I'm Aaron Rand along with Natasha Hall, and this week we'll cover these stories. Canada's immigration minister wants to open up a new area of immigration by inviting up to 10,000 highly skilled workers, mainly from the U.S., to bring their skills here. He says our labor shortage makes it necessary, but Statistics Canada doesn't necessarily agree. Sean Fraser will explain.
The Montreal Jazz Festival is wrapping up in the city. It's 10 days of music in the streets and a mutual love affair between the audience and the artists performing for them. Australian pop star VANCE JOY was in town and he was feeling the love. We caught up with him after his huge outdoor show. And every week it seems there are different medical advancements, and this one, a blood test to detect a potentially fatal condition in pregnant women, well, it certainly got our attention. How would it work? Could it save lives? As usual, with these kinds of questions, we turn to Dr. Christopher Labos for answers.
And Canadian singer-songwriter and Juno-award winner Julie Black couldn't have expected the kind of reaction she got when she changed one word in Canada's national anthem. Now the Prime Minister has weighed in. You're going to hear from her coming up next.
Oh, Canada, our home on a native land.
That is Julie Black. That was the line, or the word, actually, because that's all it is a word that kind of got people up in arms to some degree, which I think caught us a little by surprise. Didn't think that many people would actually react to this, but many have.
I think it caught the whole world by surprise. And I still get shivers when I hear it. I still have that. I'm like, whoa, that is such a powerful moment.
So that was Julie Black singing at the NBA All-Star Game. That's when this topic first came up. We played a clip earlier on, if you didn't hear it, the Prime Minister weighing in on this, the idea that maybe that's something we consider making a permanent change. Julie Black is on the line. She's a Canadian R&B singer, Juno-award winner, of course. Julie, thanks so much for being here again.
Oh, it's my pleasure. How are you both today?
We're doing good, and we're kind of little, I'll be honest with you, we asked a question earlier on in the show of our audience, so what do you think? You okay with this, not okay with this? And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, we had a few people suggest, no, I don't want this change. Some for the reason of, I don't want change, period, and some for the reason of, no, I don't think that's fair to those Canadians who are not native Canadians. I mean, it's kind of a pick your poison. I know, and maybe you could just recount this. When you did this, decided to go ahead with this, what were you expecting as reaction, or were you expecting any?
I wasn't expecting any. I did it as a way to show my support to Indigenous folks, Indigenous peoples, to use the biggest platform for the Canadian anthem in the world for a meaningful moment, and to be open. The NBA All-Star break is like so American. I really didn't think most people would notice. I kind of like hid the kale in the smoothie, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's exactly the opposite of what happened,
Hid the kale in the smoothie. Holy.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite. I mean, it's something that I'm grateful that we're having conversation. So I think it's less about should it be changed? Is it something that it's really more about, hey, we're still in the day of wondering how we could all support truth and reconciliation, and really, as Canadians, recognize that even if you're like, I'm born here, I'm born and raised here, but this isn't the land. So this isn't my land. Like, that's just how I feel about it personally. And so it's okay to celebrate the history and not feel like, you know, something's being taken away from you if we acknowledge the truth.
Hallelujah. One doesn't have to go without the other. That's kind of what we were trying to get across today. Yet people are very resistant. Now, Julie, when we spoke to you right after this, right, I think it was like within the week that you had sung this at the NBA All-Star Game, you were having a very emotional reaction to it, and you were having ongoing conversations. So here we are all this time later. Mm-hmm. Are you still very emotional about it? Are you still having those kinds of conversations? I mean, with everybody, but particularly with the Indigenous community.
Oh, absolutely. I'm still very. I'll be. It's something that brings emotion to my eyes. Just the thought of the little boys and girls, and even elders, everybody who are Indigenous, saying this is the only way we sang it, or thank you for seeing us. We know you as a Black person have your own plights but yet you know, thank you for the courage. And I didn't think it was that anything super bold and courageous to be open. My barometer is always like the path of least resistance. I didn't feel any resistance. I felt all love, all peace, and so it'll always have a visceral kind of effect on me, and I'm just so happy that there's conversation. And yes, we're still talking about it, and I hope that it continues to be discussed where it's on a micro level, though, like what's going on within the communities. You know, how could we truly look at this anthem and go and dissect it every word? Some people don't want to hear "God keep our land." They're not religious, you know. So it's just something that some of us are realizing that it was kind of forced upon us. Yes, it's an anthem. I get it, patriotism. Then we have our, you know, those people who veterans, and I'll never take away like that's important, 100%. I also feel like there's room for conversation and improvement. I'm a songwriter. There's some songs I wrote 20 years ago that I don't sing right now. Like, I don't think I'll sing that heartbreak song right now.
So I'm curious, we're going to run out of time, but I wonder too if after the initial reaction, right, the outrage, if you want to call it that, from some people, it dies down, and has it resurfaced again, or is it over as far as you're concerned? You're still getting those from people?
Oh, it's totally. Once the Assembly of First Nations stood in, you know, had my back, once I had the blanketing ceremony and the eagle's feather, and people are seeing that I'm actually doing work, and I've been doing work within the Indigenous communities. They realized it wasn't a PR stunt. It was not a fad. I'm continuing to, you know, wave the flag, so to speak. And you know, to me, it's like everybody's entitled to their opinion, even ugly ones. It's your opinion. You know, those who are spitting hate and rage, they have to really examine where that's coming from and why, because it really has nothing to do with me.
Oof, that's how I feel like if anybody's going to decide, it should be the people most affected by the words. However,
right.
I understand that to some degree all Canadians are affected. Julie, who should decide if these lyrics get changed or not?
Well, I think that we call upon the chiefs and make it an Indigenous, you know, an assembly type thing. I think that obviously to put it into law, it has to be the government. But it has to come from, I believe, Indigenous people saying, yeah, this is something that will make us feel like we are rendered no longer invisible.
For those who missed it, I will play this, and we have to wrap it up on this. This was the Prime Minister responding to that exact question earlier today, Brian.
The anthem has changed many times over the past decades in a lot of different ways that have always been driven by and responsive by Canadians. So I look forward to talking with Indigenous Canadians about how they feel the anthem could or might change. I want to talk about with a lot of Canadians. It's not any government's anthem, it's Canadian. I'm open to the changes that Canadians want to see.
All right. We shall see where it goes from that. Julie, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure. Take care.
Good care.
You
Julie
too.
Black.
Informative,
interactive,
and always interesting.
This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Canada's immigration minister wants to open up a new area of immigration by inviting up to 10,000 highly skilled workers, mainly from the U.S., to bring their skills here. He says our labor shortage makes it necessary, but Statistics Canada doesn't necessarily agree. Sean Fraser will explain. So this was an interesting story. I kind of did a double take when I first saw it. Canada's federal immigration minister, Sean Fraser, who we've had a chance to speak to before, introducing a new plan. This would be to attract up to 10,000 highly skilled workers to this country to fill what we are perceiving, I guess, as a labor shortage. There are a couple of interesting elements to this, but I wanted to start with, first of all, that number, 10,000 highly skilled workers. So the minister's on the line, right? Minister Fraser, thanks for being here this afternoon.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, look, the part that kind of surprised me, I guess, is the fact that these 10,000 workers would be coming here from the United States. That's where you're primarily trying to access these people from. Is that correct?
Just to clarify, the policy you're referring to is only one of 6 measures that we announced as part of our tech talent attraction strategy, which will take workers from all over the world based on the level of their talent not their country of origin. But one of the policies is specific to H-1B visa holders, and that will target specifically workers who are currently in the United States.
Okay, so as I understood it, an H-1B visa for a Canadian to get into the U.S. allows a Canadian to go there to work if they can take a job. I think the old story used to be that it is not currently being able to be filled by an American. Is that what we're referring to here?
That's right. Although there's a unique moment in time that we're living through that made this policy particularly appropriate given the circumstances. We've seen tens of thousands of tech workers laid off in the United States. But one facet of the H-1B visa policy is that if you lose your job, you only have 60 days to find a new one. And if you don't, you have to leave the country. Knowing that there were tens of thousands of some of the world's most talented tech workers who were maybe being forced to leave the United States created a window of opportunity for Canada to put our hand up and say, we may have an opportunity for you to remain in North America by contributing to a Canadian tech business.
Okay, which sounds great, but then I wondered, does that mean for them to come here, if they qualify, would they have to had a job lined up beforehand, or are we just going to say, come on in and good luck, we hope you find a job?
We're going to be finalizing some of the details coming ahead, but I have no reservations about the people who've received an H-1B visa being able to find meaningful work in Canada. The H-1B visa is one of the most competitive processes for anyone to qualify when it comes for economic migration. We're dealing with the world's most highly educated and talented and experienced tech professionals and some other highly skilled professionals as well. These are people who will be a net add to the economy and will be a very short period of time, I expect, before they're gainfully employed, creating wealth for Canadians rather than taking from a finite pool of resources.
Okay, and they're going to have an open work visa for 3 years, if I understand that. Is that correct?
That's right. So they'll be able to transition between employers if they come here on an open work permit for up to 3 years. And of course, people who work in a highly skilled profession for a few years in Canada have a very good opportunity to transition to permanent residency as well.
So do most of them do that, Minister Fraser? Do most of these temporary workers end up becoming Canadians?
Well, it's hard to say with specificity because we've never had a program that uniquely targeted H-1B visa holders before. We do see about half of the people who transition to permanent residency in any given year are already here temporarily. Many started as international students. Others come in as temporary foreign workers. But this policy, I expect, will have a significant number of people transition to permanent residency and perhaps to citizenship. But the proof will be in the pudding once we actually have access to the data in the years that follow people first arriving.
So I know in the speech that you gave the other day, you also introduced something, and I've not heard of this before, called a digital nomad strategy. Can you explain, because that's separate and apart from this?
That's right. So people all over the world are more mobile than they have ever been before. This is true more in the tech sector than it is in any other sector of the economy. Of course, people who work in tech often have the ability to work remotely from their home. And we're saying that if you want to try living in Canada and you have an employer who's willing to continue to pay you, we're happy to have you living in Canada for up to 6 months on a visitor's visa while you continue to earn money from a foreign employer and spend money in Canada. The real unique advantage that this program has is that we've built in functionality that allows a person who receives a job offer once they're in Canada to transition to a Canadian work permit where they'd be able to remain and to continue to work for a few years. Many of those people, like we just discussed on the H-1B visa holder, may choose to transition to permanent residency. But in the meantime, this program allows them to take Canada for a test drive, figure out whether it's the kind of place they want to live, and while they're figuring that out, continue to live in our communities and spend money in our communities, despite the fact they may be paid by a foreign employer.
Would that then affect, say, immigration quotas in a place like Quebec, for example, which of course says, hey, we have our own control of immigration here. How would this program work here?
So the people who come in initially are coming in as visitors. Quebec has a unique aspect to its immigration policy where the person, before they work for a Canadian employer in Quebec or transition to permanent residency in Quebec, would actually need to be invited to do so through a selection process that's run by the provincial government.
Okay.
So for people to transition, they would need to have that relevant certificate, depending on whether it's a temporary or permanent residency that they might be pursuing. Of course, Quebec would be eligible to welcome them. It would be up to the provincial government to decide in an individual case whether they want that individual to be able to work temporarily or transition to permanent residency.
Good grief. Of course it has to be more complicated in Quebec. I wonder if these H-1B visas, so this is specifically right now for the tech sector, will it expand beyond that?
Well, an H-1B visa holder disproportionately will work in the tech sector. There are other highly skilled professionals who could qualify. We have not ruled out the possibility of those people in other sectors taking part in this program, but oftentimes they are highly skilled workers who will find work in whatever sector they may work in. But I do expect, given the nature of the program in the United States, that a disproportionate number of them will land in the tech sector in its truest form.
So I just want to, the part of this story kind of comes at the end for me that, again, kind of forced me to look at this and go, wait a sec. I know the government maintains that there's a labor shortage in the country. There's a number that says there are that many fewer jobs now than there were back in, say, 2016. Yet Statistics Canada says, and I'm going to read you the quote, I'm sure you've heard it, employers' difficulties to fill job vacancies requiring high levels of education cannot, in general, be attributed to a national shortage or local shortage of highly educated job seekers, kind of implying the fact, Minister, that, you know what, it's great to have highly skilled workers, but we don't have a labor shortage in Canada of those workers to begin with.
There's a couple of points that I'd like to offer in response, and I have enormous respect for Statistics Canada. I think they do extraordinary work that informs the policies that we adopt all of the time. The reality is, though, just because there may be a highly skilled worker who's currently living in my part of the country, in rural Nova Scotia, doesn't mean that we should expect that that person is willing to pick up their lives and their family and move to downtown Toronto, where an opportunity may be. I think we have to understand that people don't make decisions in a vacuum, and that Canada is not some monolithic entity where workers simply just walk into a job that happens to open up right beside them. People are living their lives in communities in different provinces across this country. And though there may be, at certain skill levels, enough workers to fill the vacancies we have today, it's not as simple as saying that every worker can slot into every vacancy, because the unique facets of their life may cause them to reflect on more than whether there's a job open. The other piece that I think is really important that really separates this question about welcoming tech workers from the sentence that you just read from Statistics Canada is that what we see in tech is that companies from around the world move to jurisdictions where they have access to the talent that they need to grow. So this is not a zero-sum game where a new worker comes in and fills a job, and that job is then filled and other people can't pursue it. Instead, if you have 1,000 computer programmers or software engineers show up in a particular city, you're likely to attract a new company who's going to hire computer programmers and software engineers. By bringing a pool of workers in a sector where companies and capital are highly mobile, we have the opportunity to grow the size of the pie rather than divvy out more pieces of a pie, each of which may be smaller than before.
So we're out of time. I would simply ask, as an addendum to that, are you, as the government, reaching out to those companies you're alluding to here and saying, hey, we want you to come to Canada, we're making the rules easier, and offering them incentives as well?
Absolutely. And in fact, we just launched a major ad campaign in big tech markets, and already we see that there is explosive interest. In the first couple of days, we've had 40,000 people seek information through our website from just primarily 3 tech markets in the United States. This is going to continue to receive global attention. And if the first couple of days or weeks since the announcement was made are any indication, there's going to be no shortage of people who seek to avail themselves of this opportunity, which is going to help us grow the Canadian economy, which isn't just good for tech workers. That's good for everybody in this country.
Minister Fraser, I want to thank you for your time. Very much appreciate it.
A pleasure as always.
Take care.
Informative.
Interactive.
And always interesting.
This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
The Montreal Jazz Festival is wrapping up in the city. It's 10 days of music in the streets and a mutual love affair between the audience and the artists performing for them. Australian pop star VANCE JOY was in town and he was feeling the love. We caught up with him after his huge outdoor show.
Running down to the riptide, taken away to the dark side. I wanna be your left-hand man. I love you when you're singing that song, and I got a lump in my throat.
Studio 6. Thanks so much for being with us on this kind of rainy afternoon. I want you to just picture this. It was Sunday night, one of those beautiful, hot Montreal nights. Vance Joy is on stage at the Jazz Festival singing to a crowd that goes as far as the eyes can see. It was a moment. And it seemed to me the Australian pop star was taking it all in. Vance Joy joins us now. Hello, Vance.
Hey, Natasha. Thank you for having me.
Hey, great to talk to you again. So what was that moment like? I felt like you were really taking in the adoration of the crowd.
Yeah, I was just having a flashback when you described it. Yeah, I really was. It was, we usually played we played a tour recently through all of Canada and America, and it was, sometimes it was 5,000 or 6,000 people, maybe a little bit more, and then in Australia maybe, 12,000 maybe or something like that. But there was so many people, and it really just, as you said, kept going, the crowd, and it really, we thought, okay, we better put on our best performance, and it brings out the best in everyone, I think, when we're on stage and we see that many people. So I was, trying to stay present, turn off the voice in my head and just look out, and I guess when I'm enjoying it and when the band's enjoying it, it creates this, this connection, this little loop of good vibes, and it just kind of flows back and forth. So it felt like that was happening, and it was a special one.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, because you just wonder if it's just the crowd, because we're swept up in what you're doing, whether you're able to feel it too. Is it overwhelming sometimes, Vance, though, especially when you're in front of a huge crowd like that?
Recently it's been good. I think at certain points on the journey over the last 10 years of playing for people, there's been times when I've been stressed, or I've walked out and I guess been a bit daunted, or just felt the pressure of trying to entertain, say, 15,000 people or something if I'm opening for a big artist. But, now I feel confident in what we do, and, you get started, you sing a couple of songs, you get kind of take the temperature of the crowd, and you get motivated from that. And I think, just naturally you get better at it as well over the last, 10 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. We've just feel more and more comfortable on stage, and just have fun, just I enjoy looking at the band and looking at, getting that connection, looking in their eyes, maybe riffing a bit, or just smiling or laughing, or just feeling that we're just hanging out. And if we feel like we're hanging out and we're all mates, it translates for sure. So,
you obviously get to travel the world. You're talking about, doing concerts other places. Is it fair to say, and I realize maybe this is a loaded question given that we're from here, does the Montreal Jazz Fest strike you as perhaps one of the best anywhere in the world that you've played?
It's definitely the biggest crowd we've played. I don't know we played some big crowds, maybe opening. We got to open for Taylor Swift at a couple of places where there was really big venues, but we were only playing for 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And so this was, it's a really cool festival. The fact that people can come and it's free, and it's kind of like something special happening in the city. It's great to play and just kind of get on the same page as everyone. Everyone seems like they're in a bit of a celebratory mood. So yeah, definitely a special one. And I think even just reflecting on it the last couple of days, we've all been kind of riding a bit of a high after that show. So that's cool. For sure, a super special one that I think we stored in the archives, one of the great shows. I
remember, I don't know how many years ago, I feel like it was 4 or 5 years ago, you played at Osheaga, and you seemed surprised that people turned out to see you, and they were so I can only imagine it kind of going other level like this now with Jazz Fest. Although I think that it was a pretty huge crowd at Osheaga that time too. I told you, because we got to hang out a little bit backstage after the show, which I don't even know how that happened. I'm so grateful for it. But I'm guessing
for you, Vance, that would be one of the most memorable moments of the time you spent in Montreal, was meeting Natasha backstage.
Well,
right?
we had a good hang.
I see.
It was very nice, actually. I was just reminded what a lovely person you are. So it was good hanging out, and it's also nice to hang out with. If there's been a few people hanging around and your friends and stuff hanging outside a stage, it creates a bit of an atmosphere. Sometimes we get off stage and we just go straight, and everyone starts eating the food that we ordered before the set to come straight after the show. And sometimes it feels like it's like I don't feel like eating dinner right as I get off stage. I think we just need to let it soak in a bit. Let's have a beer and just relax for a second. So was good to have that vibe.
I was astonished. So I've told you, we've met a few times now, and I told you that you're so generous and you're so grounded. And honestly, Vance, it doesn't make sense anymore at this point. Like, as your career has progressed and you've gotten bigger and bigger, you've remained just this completely lovely, down-to-earth man. How do you do that, given this life that you lead?
Well, that's very kind of you to say. I think I have all the same friends that I always had, and I think, you know, when it comes down to it, like, if you're surrounded by people that don't let you get away with too much, I guess your ego stays within a certain size. And not to say that I don't have big-headed moments or whatever. Maybe everyone's like human, but I think it helps. You know, maybe my wife is like, "Did you remember to buy the carpet that you told me you were going to do, or did you get the thing that you said you'd do, and you said you'd do this?" And then, so I'm not trying to complain, but I'm saying, like, and same with my family. It's like I don't get any special treatment. You know, I feel like I'm on the same level. So I also have low expectations, I guess, in a healthy way with music. So I keep my expectations low, and I think I'm not often disappointed. So, you know, if I keep them low, when I go out there and there's a good sized crowd, it's like, whoa, okay, we're winning today. Like, we're ahead of whatever expectations I'd set. So I guess all those things help.
I love that, you know, the idea, but it's hard to stay humble, if you want to use that word, when you're, you know, traveling around the world, thousands of fans coming up to see you, people like, you know, Natasha having to go backstage and spend time with you and have a beer and whatever else. But it's nice to know that you're that grounded that you're still getting in trouble with your wife, like all of us. That's a wonderful thing.
Well, it's a new marriage.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of that to say, clearly she plays a great role in your life. But is that difficult? I mean, you just got married and you're on the road. What's that like?
It's good. I mean, I think it's hard, like, in terms of balancing, like, touring and your home life and family and your partner. It's probably always a bit of a balance that you need to figure out, and the need to be flexible is there for sure. But you know, I definitely streamlined a little bit of touring over this period, because just to be able to be around, and just, I think, even touring in the future, like, I still want to be doing touring, and we'll find the balance. But I guess the days of doing like 6 months on the road the whole time, I definitely did that when I was like 26 to like 30, maybe even more recently, and I enjoyed that a lot. But I guess, you know, your life changes, so you just kind of adapt to it. But I'm home in 2 weeks, so it's all good. I kind of just picking my favorite shows and choosing really carefully, like a special run, like this run through Canada has been awesome, and you know, I have no regrets about being here. It's perfect.
Can I just add, I've always wondered, so you come here, you play the show, you have pretty much all day to yourself. What do you do when you're in Montreal? Like, where did you go? What do you do? Do people tell you go here, go there? Well, what happens?
Wow. Oh, it's cool. Well, it's always different. And, you know, with the band, like, some days we're just like, you know, we all just sat in our hotel rooms all day and we did nothing. Some days it's like that, and we get into the show and we're all a bit like, you know, you're exhausted from kind of doing nothing in a weird way. But we had a great experience in Montreal. I went to a driving range because I kind of recently got interested in golf, and so
driving range.
I wanted to go and hit some balls.
Wait till you hear where he went.
We got into... Pardon? Oh, you know, this is my story I was telling you already on backstage.
Yeah, I love
I'm
it.
like a broken record.
Where did
I
you
love
go?
it.
I went to Nuns Island, and there was a golf course there. I didn't realize it was a members course, but I got there and they said, "Look, you're not a member, but you can hit some balls. You come all this way, whatever." So I went and hit some balls. I met a nice kid who worked there, who just came and we struck up a conversation while I was hitting, and he's like, "Should come and have a hit with me another day." And so I took 2 of the guys from the band, and we had a round of 9 holes yesterday on Nuns Island.
Isn't that wild?
That's great.
It was one of those great days on tour where you're just like, you know, how lucky are we? We're playing this beautiful golf course. We've made a new friend. It felt like a special day. So every now and then you get it really right. And
It's nice to hear.
So it kind of balances out all those days in hotel rooms.
I think there's a mutual love affair going on, Montreal and you. Okay, so the last thing, we're out of time, Vance, but before I let you go, I think you're in Calgary, and then you're going home, like you said, and then you're in Quebec City for the Festival d'été. When we were backstage, you were getting razzed, getting teased about wearing a certain navy blue shirt over and over again. So will you be wearing it in Calgary and in Quebec City?
Wow, you know what? My suitcase, I just kind of like grabbed a bunch of stuff and I just stuffed it in there before I came. And so I'm looking in my room now. I've got 3 shirts in front of me. I've got like a green short sleeve shirt. They're kind of like summery shirts. I don't know how they're all going to fit together. I've also got to iron them. So that's kind of what's in front of me.
Life on the road.
I do want to branch out, but there is one of those shirts is a navy shirt again. So I'm pretty predictable.
Don't wear that one because Natasha will make fun of you.
No, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, Van. And with you, it seems to me like nothing's broken. There's no fixing to do. Thank you so much for your time and your generosity yet again.
My pleasure. Lovely to talk.
Informative.
Interactive.
And always interesting.
This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Every week, it seems there are different medical advancements, and this one, a blood test to detect a potentially fatal condition in pregnant women, well, it certainly got our attention. How would it work? Could it save lives? As usual, with these kinds of questions, we turn to Dr. Christopher Labos for answers.
Came across this and I thought we need to talk about this because when you see the word groundbreaking in front of a story and it's in medicine, it's worth talking about. So Dr. Christopher Labos joins us. He, of course, is a cardiologist. You've heard him here on CJAD. He is on, by the way, Sunday mornings on CJAD 800, on weekends with Ken. That's at about 8:10. So Dr. Labos, I read this and I thought, okay, I don't know much about this, but I know you will be able to explain. So I've heard of preeclampsia, which is a leading cause of disability and death among childbearing women. And now there is apparently something as simple as a blood test that can actually predict this. So can you fill us in?
Sure. So, let me start off by explaining what preeclampsia is so people can understand it. The best way to explain this to people was if you've ever seen Downton Abbey, that's what killed Lady Sybil on Downton Abbey.
Oh.
And that's usually the best way to explain it to people because it means you say that everybody sort of understands what you're talking about. It is essentially a disease of pregnancy. So during pregnancy, some women develop very, very high blood pressure. In fact, the triad of symptoms is you have high blood pressure, you have swelling in the ankles, and you have protein in the urine. And we call that preeclampsia because that's the preliminary stage to the more severe form of the disease, which is eclampsia, which is when you start to have seizures. And that's what ultimately killed Lady Sybil on Downton Abbey. So in the days before modern medicine, a lot of women would develop eclampsia, meaning they would start to develop seizures and die in pregnancy. Now, because we are better at diagnosing it early, really just because now we know to actually check the urine for signs of protein, we can actually measure blood pressure, two things that really weren't really done in the early 1900s. You can now diagnose it early before the seizures start, and that's called preeclampsia. And then you can try to manage it. And when women get very bad, if they look like they're starting to get into the stages of eclampsia, you can actually deliver the baby, which is essentially the cure for the condition, which actually would have saved Lady Sybil as well. And that was the whole plot of that story arc. Like, should they deliver the baby or not? And in fact, yes, they should have, because if they had, that would have essentially saved her life and ended the entire problem.
Wow. But prior to delivering the baby, Dr. Labos, how do you treat it? How are you able to bring, before we get to this blood test, how do you bring the blood pressure down?
So that's debatable. I mean, there is some debate about whether you should give women a prophylactic aspirin or not. The evidence is mostly in favor of doing that, I think, although there's always some debate about whether it's truly beneficial or not. But, prophylactic baby aspirin is one thing. But probably the most important thing is, number one, treating the high blood pressure. Which obviously helps. And then it's really just monitoring, because if you can get the pregnancy to term, the minute you start getting into trouble, then you just deliver the baby, and that's the solution. So it's really about managing the pregnancy, getting the baby to term, and then having the baby delivered either with, a vaginal childbirth or by C-section if it's truly an emergency case. But that's really the sort of the cornerstone of medical treatment. It's close monitoring and dealing with the risk factors, the main one being the very high blood pressure.
Okay. I'm enthralled by this idea that a blood test could now...
It's something so simple.
Yeah. So tell us about that. How's that going to work?
Right. So what they're measuring, and the specific blood test that I think was referenced in the article, was the SP ratio, which is actually two different blood tests and you divide one by the other and you get a number, and if that number is bigger than 38 or less than 38, you have a sense of whether preeclampsia is more or less likely. But there's always been an interest in trying to identify who is going to get preeclampsia or eclampsia or not, because then you could at least allocate more resources to the women who are at higher risk and maybe treat them more aggressively. Because there is, you can manage and assess these women clinically by just doing regular follow-ups, and we say, well, that sounds easy, and it is to an extent. But it does take a lot of resources. It does take a lot of time. It does take a lot of medical personnel. So if you could develop a blood test that would identify these women like at the beginning of the pregnancy, so you would know this woman is going to get preeclampsia, this woman won't. Now you don't have to follow everybody as intensely. You can space out your resources, and that becomes a useful way to do essential medical triage. The problem with the SP ratio and the many other candidates that have been proposed over the years, like activin A and inhibin A and a number of other biomarkers that have been proposed for preeclampsia, they all have their limitations. Some are better at ruling in the disease, some are better at ruling out the disease, but they don't tend to perform as well early in pregnancy relative to later in pregnancy. So in the first trimester, everyone's blood test is more or less normal. And by the second trimester, some of the values start to going up, and it's really only in the third trimester that you start to get very abnormal values where you can see a clear distinction between the people who are going to get sick and the people who are normal. And then you get into an argument as well, if the blood tests are only going to be useful by the time you get to the third trimester, are they actually clinically useful? Because at that point, you're still checking these women, you're still doing the blood pressure, you're still doing all the antenatal stuff that you're normally going to do. So it's not that these blood tests don't work or that they aren't useful, or that they haven't been discovered. It's always a question of how do you use them effectively, and do they actually get you to change management?
Okay.
The wrinkle.
So we shouldn't get I was just feeling like this would be such a total and complete game changer, but it sounds like that's not really the case. I mean, it depends on the circumstances.
It depends on the circumstance. I mean, I was doing a research project with a colleague of mine on a bunch of these biomarkers, and it's, they do work. Now, what's interesting about the SP ratio is that it was very good at ruling out disease, but not as good at ruling in disease. And people sometimes don't realize that not every test works perfectly in every circumstance. So when a test is very sensitive versus very specific, it can be very good at ruling out disease rather than ruling it in. So that a normal test means, you're probably going to be fine, but an abnormal test doesn't necessarily mean that that's the case. So you start to see how the subtlety of that can be problematic. And ideally, you would want a test to be both sensitive and specific at the same time, so it was perfect. But sometimes you have to decide, am I willing to use an imperfect test that has more false positives, or am I willing to have a test that has more false negatives? And those are sort of the nuances that have to be worked into clinical practice. It's not to say that we can't use these tests, and we may end up using them, at some point more widely. Right now, they seem to be used more for research and in very sort of academic settings. I don't know that we're quite at the point where we're going to start doing these types of blood tests on every woman who gets pregnant, because it's not clear how it would change management at this point, because even early on, a normal test may not mean anything because it may become abnormal once you get into the third trimester, which is when the problems with preeclampsia usually start.
Dr. Labos, as always, thank you. We appreciate the time. There you go. Thanks so much.
Yeah, take care.
That wraps up another edition of The Week That Was here on the iHeartRadio Network. I'm Aaron Rand, along with Natasha Hall, and we will catch you next time.
Here's wishing you a great summer.
This has been the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Listen live on your radio weekday afternoons from 2 to 6
on CJAD 800
or through the iHeartRadio app.